Chapter 6. Ethan cradled Leah's face between his palms and said, "You are as beautiful to me as ever." Just looking up into his blue eyes made Leah's knees go weak. "Oh, Ethan, I've missed you so much." His lips found hers, the warmth of his mouth broke through the icy chill of the night air. His kiss lingered, then he hugged her hard against his chest. He was dressed English, even through the layers of coat and sweaters he wore. She felt his heart thudding. He smelled clean like soap and tasted of cinnamon candy. She wrapped her arms around him tightly. "I could not wait until the morning to see you," he said. "I had to come tonight." "How did you get here?" Leah peered around him, half expecting to see his Amish buggy and his horse. But what she saw was Jonah's old beat-up green car. "I have learned to drive," Ethan said. "I have my license now." Leah was shocked. "You never told me that in your letters. I wanted to surprise you. What's your father say about it?" "He does not know." This wasn't typical of the Ethan she knew. The old Ethan never would have gone against his father's wishes or acted behind his father's back. "Do you like driving?" "Yes, and getting places takes less time. I like that too." "But you still live at home?" "Only during the week. On weekends I stay in town at Jonah's. He has a job in town now, and his own apartment. Many new friends too. It is often like one big party." Leah realized that many changes had occurred in the few months she and Ethan had been apart. "Jonah always told me he'd stay Amish, that English ways were for fling-taking only." "He is still Amish. We are all Amish." Ethan sounded offensive. "Trying out English ways will not change who we are." How did Charity feel about Jonah living on his own? Does she come to his parties? Ethan's sister had once confided to Leah that she expected one day to marry Jonah. "She has come to a few parties, but before Christmas she told Jonah she would not see him again, unless he changed his habits and came back to the Amish way." "I'll bet he didn't take that too well." "He got very drunk and very sick." Ethan smoothed Leah's hair. "I do not want to talk about Jonah and Charity. I want to talk about us." "What about us?" "You will be here only a week, and I want to spend all of my time with you." "What about your farm chores?" "The heavy work is done until spring. Simeon is expected to take on more of the easier work I have been doing. I have thought about getting a job in town for the winter." Leah stepped back. "Can you do that?" "It is something we Amish often do during the winter time to earn extra money." "What would you do? What can you do?" Ethan's eyes took on a mischievous sparkle. "Do you think I have no talents except pitching hay and mending fences?" Leah felt her face redden. Ethan had gone to school only through the 8th grade, and she wasn't sure what kind of job skills he possessed. "Of course not. I was just wondering, that's all." "I'm a good carpenter, and there are Amish farmers who have no sons or who do not stay with the old ways. They have machinery to make jobs easier. I can work at one of those farms." "Is this what you want?" "What I want," Ethan said quietly, "is to spend every minute of this week with you. I'll be staying at Jonah's here in town all week long, so we can be together." She tightened her arms around his waist again. "All right, but I want to see Charity. Is it okay if I go out to your farm?" "Certainly, it's all right." "Then I'll go in the morning." "I will go with you," he said. He gave her Jonah's address. "Come and get me when you are ready." He kissed her good night. Leah watched him return to Jonah's old car and drive away. She felt unsettled. She was so out of step with Ethan's life. When she left in August, he had been testing the limits of his Amish upbringing, but just slightly. Now, only a few months later, he was driving and talking of taking a job. Ethan hadn't been kidding when he'd written, "I do not know where I belong." Leah was up early the next morning and ate breakfast with Kathy and her sisters. Once their parents had headed off to work, Leah drove over to Jonah's apartment. Kathy was very understanding. Leah was grateful that she could just go and be with Ethan. Ethan opened the door at her first knock. "Good morning, Leah." He smiled. His smile lit up his face. Kissing him lightly, Leah stepped into the living room area littered with newspapers, magazines, videotapes, and old pizza boxes. Pillows were scattered on the floor, and plastic cups, some half filled, dotted the tops of coffee tables and 2 lamp tables. "Boy," she said, "your livestock lives better than this. Ethan laughed. "We are not very tidy. The others are at work now. There will be a party tomorrow night. Come and meet them." Leah had gone to Amish parties before and had felt like an outsider. "Will I be the only English?" "No, I have told you. Jonah had many new friends. Most are English." "But will any of your Amish friends be here?" Leah was thinking specifically about Jonah's sister Martha. Ethan nodded. "We Amish still do many things together. We have been friends a long time. Jonah invites everyone, but not everyone comes." Leah felt sure that Martha would show up, but she decided not to let the thought upset her. After all, Ethan had made it quite clear that it was Leah he wanted to be with all week. The drive out to the farm along the flat, familiar country road brought memories of summer back to Leah. The fields had been green, a sea of corn stalks. Now the corn had been harvested and the stalks were brown, dry, and broken. Patches of snow dotted the roadside, and puddles of water were iced over. Leah came to the fence, then marked the boundary of the Longacre farm, and slowed down. She could hardly stand to look upon the place where a truck had plowed into the produce stand, flattening the fence behind it and killing Rebecca, who had been in its path. The fence looks as if it was never hit, Leah said. It does not take wood long to weather, Ethan said, or for little girls to die, Leah thought. The pain of Rebecca's death struck her hard and deep. She could only imagine what it must feel like for Ethan to pass this place every day. Ethan peered through the windshield at the gray sky. We will have a snow by mid-morning. You can tell that just by looking at the sky. I've been reading the signs of coming weather all my life. The winter will be hard this year. How do you know? The woolly caterpillars grew extra thick coats last fall. When they do, winter will be very cold. Gee, and all this time I've been watching the Weather Channel. Ethan gave her a puzzled look, then slowly smiled. You're making a joke. I understand because I never seen this Weather Channel on Jonah's TV. Leah returned his smile. There had been a time when Ethan hadn't caught on to her humor because it was English. She said, You're really different these days. Only in some ways, he told her. Leah turned into the long, rutted driveway to the house. Except for the colors of winter, the old farmhouse was exactly as Leah had remembered it. The weathered wooden roof and siding looked stark against the sky, much as she believed they had 100 years before when first built. No electrical or telephone wires tethered them to the present. One shutter had come off its hinge. I must fix that, Ethan said, for Ma. His expression looked brooding. Leah parked and shut off the engine, half expecting Rebecca to come flying out the door to meet them. The door swung open and instead Charity stepped onto the porch. She wore a long black Amish dress and prayer cap. A woolen shawl was tied around her shoulders. Leah, she cried, hurrying to the car. Leah got out and embraced her friend. Surprise! I couldn't stay away. Charity glanced at her brother, and Leah could have sworn she saw a shadow of sadness flicker across Charity's eyes. The look vanished as Charity grabbed Leah's hand. Come inside where it is warm. I have tea and fresh bread made. Inside the kitchen, Leah felt the warmth from the old wood stove in the corner. The room smelled like baking bread and warm apples. Tilly Longacre, Charity, and Ethan's mother greeted Leah as asked a few polite questions, then cut some warm bread, placed it on a plate, and carried it out of the room. Oma had a bad cold, Charity explained as she poured Leah hot tea, so Mama is taking her a snack. I hope she'll be okay, Leah said. Oma had sometimes reminded Leah of her Grandma Hall. I will look in on her, Ethan said. When Leah was alone with Charity, she asked, How are you doing? Charity sighed. Winters are very long. I miss Rebecca very much. So do I. But Sarah's new baby is precious. Charity brightened. I spend many afternoons at Sarah's helping with little Josiah. He is most adorable. Listen, Ethan told me about you and Jonah. Leah changed the subject, not knowing how long the two of them would be alone. I'm sorry, I know you liked him. I still like him, but I cannot be with him when he is so wild. Until he returns to the community in Amish ways, I will have nothing to do with him. Charity looked sad. Leah wondered how much of Charity's decision was hers and how much of it was her family's. I'm sure Jonah will come around, Leah said. He's always told me that he would have his fling and return to Amish ways. He did. Well, yes. Leah got no further. The outside door opened and Mr. Longacre stepped into the room. His expression looked grim. He took one look at Leah and walked straight past her without saying a word.